This is Wings on the Air.
Welcome to Wings on the Air. My name is Ann Edenfield-Sweet. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Wings for Life International. And today we're going to get advice from a police chaplain. And unfortunately, a lot of those calls have to do with suicide. So today we are going to hear about not only the life of a police chaplain, but also ways to deal with suicide and how are we going to help people to avoid this in the first place. So our guest today is Police Chaplain Rachel Donovan. And Rachel, share a little of your history and what brings you to this position of a police chaplain.
Well, I moved out to New Mexico in 2004. I'm originally from Chicago, and my daughter came and went through the Sheriff's Academy, and she never came back to Illinois, and so I had to come out here. And so I've been out here ever since then. I started in about 2012 with a dual training for both chaplaincy and mediation. So I actually help people walk through conflict and crisis. And that led me into being a public safety, fire department and police chaplain. And so I've done that for 5 years, and then I started with APD last year. And so I've been with APD since then.
And that's the Albuquerque Police Department, APD. Well, share some of the things that you've learned through your job.
Well, so I've learned a lot of things. Like we said at first, a lot of the calls that we go on are suicide calls. And so some of my training has taught me that, we don't wake up every morning and think, I'm going to mess up as much as I possibly can or make the worst possible decisions that I can make today. We make decisions based on our understanding and what we know. And unfortunately, we don't even know what we don't know until we get older and we can look back on it and go, I didn't know that then. So, we don't purposely go out to make bad decisions, but sometimes we do.
So what are some of the issues and truths about decisions regarding suicide? Because how does somebody come to the point of suicide and thinking that way?
They want the pain to stop. So I call it a failure box. We have a failure box and we keep adding to it a lot of times. And what that is all of the things we didn't do well, we should have done, could have done, would have done if we had known different things. But if we don't have a mechanism to unload our failure box, then our failure box starts consuming more of our thoughts and more of our brain. And so this failure box gets very loud. And the more we fill it with our failures, and they might not even be failures. Something that I think is a failure may not be at all what you perceived of my action. It's just, I thought it was a failure. And so that box gets full, and if I don't have a mechanism to let it go, but a lot of people, they don't want to die, but they don't have any choice because the failure box gets so noisy and so consuming that they don't have any option to make the pain and the voices stop.
So what are some of those warning signs about suicide then? How does somebody know that somebody might be suicidal?
Well, there are some different signs. One of the ones that we see a lot is risky behavior. And that's a mentality where, well, if I do this and if I live, then I was meant to live. And if I do this and I die, I was meant to die. And so what that looks like here and actually any community is the homeless community. And the police officers will tell them, look, it's getting dark earlier. And so please don't cross the street in the middle of the street and with your dark clothing because nobody can see you. And they say, well, if I make it to the other side, I was meant to live. And if I don't make it to the other side, I wasn't meant to live. And so that's that risky behavior. So that's one of them. If you see a significant change in their appearance, they've stopped taking care of themselves, or they isolate themselves, they stop coming around. Things like that, drug and alcohol use. They become more at that. Let's say they've failed at their job. Maybe they got fired or they got demoted, or in school if it's teenage kids or school-aged kids, and they start flunking classes. Things like that. All of those are flags that you need to be looking for.
So if you see one of those flags, okay, then how are you going to help somebody that is showing signs of possible suicide?
Right. Well, how you help them is you can't be gentle about it. So when somebody says something like, well, there's only one way for this to end well. Or if they say something like, I just need for the pain to stop, and if it doesn't stop, I'm going to. You have to jump in with both feet and you have to say, Ann, are you thinking about killing yourself? You can't say hurting yourself, because in their minds, they're not going to hurt themselves. They're going to be dead and the pain's going to be over. So you have to ask them specifically, do you have a plan? Are you thinking about killing yourself? And are you working on a plan to accomplish that? And you need to ask them directly. And as soon as they hear that, that actually frees them up to start thinking about it and talking about it now. So you're not giving them the thoughts. You don't have to worry about saying something wrong, not telling them, giving them the right information, because almost nothing you can say is wrong. And if it is wrong, they'll correct you. But you just let them tell their story. But the whole thing is you have to let them know, I care about you. And now that I know that this is a struggle for you, I cannot leave until I know that you are going to be okay.
I know you said something earlier to me about the idea if you think somebody is suicidal, that start talking to them right away, like you're talking at their casket. What would you say at a casket? Gee, I loved you so much. I thought the world of you. I mean, is that the kind of thing that you need to say right off the bat?
You know, you pour out your heart to the casket. I didn't know. Why didn't you say something? What should I have seen? What could I have seen? And all of those thoughts. And those are the ones that you want to pour out to them face to face, or if you're on the phone with them, on the phone, and say, look, I know that some things have not gone well for you, but tell me the story of how we got here. Tell me the story of how you got here and what's going on, and then you just shut up and listen. And in one of my trainings, what they said is never miss a good opportunity to shut up. So that's what you do. You just ask the questions. And some of the other things that you can say to them is, please do not make us go through our life without you in it. Your life matters,
powerful.
And it matters to me. And that alone won't fix because nothing we can say is going to fix the problem for them. Nothing we say. Because we're not those therapists, we're not trained. We're just people that love them and care, and we want them to know. And that is enough to buy us some time. But one of the other important things that we need to know is love is spelled T-I-M-E. And it's like any relationship, you have to spend time. And so don't make that commitment without having the thought, I'm staying here until I know you're okay.
Well, okay, so you're around somebody and you think they're suicidal and you don't really know what to say, but you ask the question. I mean, I think I'd be nervous. Am I asking the right questions? Are there certain things that you have to ask, or should we just be blunt and just come out with, are you thinking about killing yourself? I mean, that's really the important question to ask.
That's the important question. Because if you get a positive response to that, first of all, you're actually obligated to now call the police or call some emergency providers or get them some help. You're obligated. But even if you weren't, the right thing to do is to stay with them until you can get them. So there is a training out there that's called QPR, question, persuade, refer. So we know that the referral piece is the part where you get them to somebody that can help them, because we are not trained for that. But asking that question, are you thinking about killing yourself? Do you have a plan? Do you have a weapon? Do you have something that you could use to kill yourself that I don't know about? And you have to be very direct.
So those are some of the questions that it is okay and we should ask those
Absolutely.
questions. Are there any other questions that you could think of that because I'm not trained in suicide prevention,
Right.
And our listeners probably are not either.
Right.
What other questions are there? Or we just sit there and ask the question, but then listen? Is that
Yes.
the key?
Just let them talk. And when you tell them, tell me the story of how you got here, and let them talk, because their story may or may not make sense to you, right? Because you're not them. And you don't know how to sort all that out. but that's not your job. They need to talk about it, because by talking about it, it starts to now diffuse the voices and quiet them down, because they've got somebody that's paying attention to them.
So I'm hearing you say that we need to listen, we need to be compassionate, we need to express our concern about what they're talking about, but then it is our obligation to then remain with them, not leave them, until we feel that they're safe, and then also report it.
Right, and get them too. So sometimes that requires them going to the emergency room. So the emergency room can actually deal with people who are suicidal. And just to give you an idea, I had one man that actually put the gun to his chest and pulled the trigger. And I asked him, I said, so what was the first thing you thought? And he was, darn, that hurt. And I said, what was the second thing you thought? And he said, I thought, Mike, which is not his real name, you can't even get this right. So now he's adding to that failure box again.
Yeah.
And then he said, but the third thing I thought is, I don't want to die. I want to live. He said, so they took me to the hospital, to the emergency room, and they put him in the suicide watch center while they were treating him. And that's where a nurse stays with the patient 24 hours a day. And he said, you don't have to sit here with me. And he said, because I know now I want to live. And she said, well, that's okay. We're obligated to. But a lot of people, the bridge in California, the San Francisco Bay Bridge, a lot of people that jump off that, if they live, the first thing they say is from the very moment that my hand left the railing, I knew I didn't want to die. They don't want to die, really. They just want the pain to stop.
Now, suicide, it's becoming such an epidemic, it seems, in our high schools and our younger children. So suicide, I imagine it's all ages.
The calls that I've been on have ranged in age from 9 years old to 82 years old. So the 82-year-old was a veteran that just couldn't stand being in pain anymore, and the 9-year-old, probably one of the toughest calls I went on was a young man that was 17 years old. He had just graduated high school the night before. And so you say he's got his whole world ahead of him and his whole life ahead of him. But what was going on in the background was his parents were getting a divorce. And so they were fighting over him and who his allegiance would be to. And so he started acting out, as our young kids often will. And the parents didn't understand that, so they started punitively, penalizing him. They took away his cell phone. They took away his car. They grounded him. So now he is in one location, no access to the outside world with his pain. And he thought, I can't go through this entire summer like this. So he found a way to get to where him and his friends had hung out in this one vacant lot, and he killed himself there.
Oh my goodness. And really, it was because of the issue with the parents' divorce. And now, how did those parents deal with that afterwards? I'm sure that was extremely difficult.
It's excruciating. It's excruciating. And I will tell you this, the young friends that were there, I told them, I said, please do not hate their parents, because those kids were so angry with his parents over what they'd put him through. And I said, as parents, we don't get it right. We don't always get it right. We don't have all the answers. I said, so please don't hate them, because one day you'll be a parent and you will know what we're saying. We don't get it right.
Isn't that the truth? I'm a parent of 4 kids, and no, we don't get it right. No, I'd like to go back and erase and do different things, go back to my box and clear out some of those things. But so you probably are not dealing with the families after the fact, after the immediate situation. You're called out immediately because the first call is to the police, and if they think it's a suicide, or how do they involve the chaplain in the first place, I guess?
There's 2 different ways. First of all, sometimes it is the family asking for a chaplain, but sometimes it's because the police need some scene stabilization, and we help stabilize that scene for them. So we help put the families and those people that are there We help keep them away so that the police can do their investigations. And I don't mean, we don't push them away from the scene. We just keep them together in a close location, and it secures the scene so that nobody gets